So we're going to implement the chat together real quick. I don't think I need to add any more routes, but I have in here the two that I created and just doing nothing. The intention of this one was to create the channel. So we do that using, well, first we get a context. We always get a context. Okay. And then we say channel.create, give it the context and a name. So from the other example, we just call it example. And then, which will change in a second, but that gives us a token and an error. And so if error is not equal, no. So what I have done here is that I made it so that these methods return an error. And the reason I did that, normally they don't. Normal handlers don't return error, but I made these return error. And the reason I did that was so that I could handle all the errors in one place right here. And it makes it so I just return error. I don't have to do H2E error here. That's the reason I did that. Okay, so I created the channel, and then I need to send it back to the user. So I create the new JSON encoder, and then I encode the token, and then I return it. And so this will send JSON data to the response, and the token is just going to be a string. And so now if I post to /API/channel, then it's going to create a channel and give me the token for it. So that means in my JavaScript, that should be the first thing I do down here. So after I hook up that event, I will make an API request, and I'm going to post to channels. There's no data, so I'm just going to put null, and then I'm going to get a function response error. Okay, so it's a post that has to match here. So it's the channel's endpoint with a post that goes to handle post channel. That's this guy. That's the guy I just did. So that's why this is post and channels. Null here because I'm not passing anything in. So it's just sort of like creating a new one, and then it's going to give me back stuff. So I don't pass any data, so I just pass in null. And then this is the callback. So after the function completes, I'll have a result and an error maybe. So we'll say if there's an error, we'll just alert it and just finish. Otherwise, we'll have the result, and that's actually the token. Right? So let's make sure that works. So if there's an error, just alert and return, and then otherwise the result is there, and it's going to be the token. So I expect this to give me the token when I visit the page. So it would help if I ran the server. Okay. There it is, the token. So the first thing it does when it loads the page is it goes and tries to get the listening token. And so using that, we can, now that I have a token, I can start the channel listener, right? And so if we go to the other example when I did that, we can just copy this code down here. So, and put that in our code here. So I'll take out this comment. So I have my token, and I create a channel, and then I open the socket. I open the channel to get a socket, and then I have my various methods here. So I'm just going to change these to a console log. Okay, so when a message is received, it'll call this. When it opens, it'll call this, and so on. Okay, so let's try that. So now rather than just logging the token, I'm going to try and make a connection. Okay, what happened? It says OOG is not defined. What did I forget?
Script.
To include the script on the page. So in here, there should be including a script, right? This bit. So I got to put that in there. You can just make sure you put it before your code, but otherwise anywhere is fine. So this is that special script that comes with App Engine. And that's what will give me Goog. So there we go. Now it says open. So at least it created a channel, even if I don't know if it's working yet. So the next bit would be to hook up the form, right? So I say test. Oh, it says not implemented. So I hit test and submit, and it said not implemented. That's because it did a post to /API/messages, and that returned 500. Why did that happen? That happened because inside of my code, I have it right here, handle post message, not implemented. So now I got to implement this guy, okay? So the way I want to do that is I'm going to get a context the same way. And then I want to send, well, I need to decode the message I'm sending it. So if I look at the data for this, oh, it's kind of hard to see because of all those. Okay. Wait, this is the wrong one. Okay, let me just do it again. There it is. Okay. When I look for the data for it, I can see that I sent in this data. See that? It's kind of hard to see with this text JSON. So I need to decode that on the server. So the way I do that is I create a type that's a struct. It has a single field text. It's a string. And I create a variable that has that type. Okay. And then I use JSON.newDecoder, hand it the body of the request, and decode. So this is going to take the body, that's what I saw in the console there. It's going to take that and process it as JSON and put it into message. So it'll fill this guy. It knows how to fill it because it has one field called text. And so that will match with the text that's in the JSON. So that should give me a message, and now that I have a message, I can send it. So I say channel.send JSON. I give it the context, the channel ID, which is just right up here. So these two match, right? And then the thing I want to send, which is message. Okay, that might return an error, so I'm just going to grab that. I need to check this error too, though. Okay. So, in case the message is in the wrong format, I'd like to catch that too. So, here we go. So, I got the post message. I'm going to fill up this message from the body using JSON. So I get a message. If that fails, then I just return. That would mean like the user sent me data that's not valid. But assuming that's great, then I go here and I try to send it. And I send it to this example, which is just hard-coded for now. And then I send it that object, and it will send it to the channel. So if this worked, then I should be able to refresh here, type test, and it should, in the console, send text test. So I got the message. The message worked. So this happened. Why did that happen? So it says unconstant syntax error, unexpected end of input. Well, the reason that happened is, what am I missing inside this function?
You're returning into JSON?
That's right, I'm not returning anything. And so I need to, I need to say, you know, JSON.newEncoder res.encode, you know, sent or whatever. I need to send something back, otherwise it's just like, I don't know what to do with that request. So I do that, and now it'll work. I mean, it was working before, but it was giving me that error, and now it's not giving me that error anymore. Because I had to send back some JSON. That's all I had to do. Even though this is like kind of meaningless, maybe true would be better, or okay, or something like that. Just had to give it something. Okay, so now I can send messages. The issue is that I can only send messages to myself, which is not great. So if I do, I go here and I try a different account. So I'm going to say test2@example.com and log in. I have a form and I say from test to submit it. I'm going to get that here and here. Well, I didn't get it here, but I got it here. So the issue is that I can get one or the other, but I can't get both. And the reason why is, remember, channels are per, this channel ID is supposed to be one client, and I'm trying to use it for two. And so that's not going to work, okay? Because like I said, only one person can be listening on a channel at a time. And so what we need to do is make it so that there's more than one channel. The first thing we might try is to do this. I might say u.email, right? And then after I create the context, get the user. So let me add that up here. Okay. And so now I'm going to name the channel by the user's email address. So now test@example.com will have one channel, and test2@example.com will have a different channel. Okay. So let me try that out. So here's test@example. If I write test, I get a message text. So he's getting messages. I refresh over here, and I write test here, and he gets messages. But now the issue is the first one doesn't get the messages from the second one. So now I've created like an echo chamber, and users can chat with themselves, but nobody else. So that's not very good. Though incidentally, that is a wonderful way to handle people that you like trolls in a chat room. And they do this on message forums often, where instead of like saying your account's been banned, they just make it so that their messages no longer appear to other people, but they still appear to them. So they looks like to them that they're chatting with people, but actually those messages are not going anywhere. It's a wonderful way to handle trolls.
That's wonderful.
Bravo. Nobody ever responds to them.
That's right. They just never. It's like, how come nobody's responding to me? It's like they don't see your text.
Oh, I love it.
I think what do they call it? Ghost banning?
Shadow justice in the world.
Shadow
Do they do that with algorithms, like if you're using the wrong words, or?
So on sites like Reddit and Hacker News, people can downvote your comments, and if you get too many downvotes, then you may get shadow banned. And then, but it's funny because you'll never know, because you see the messages. So to you it looks like you're chatting, but other people don't see them. So it's kind of funny. But that's not what we wanted. We actually do want messages to go between the two users, so we need to fix that.
You've already added the shadow ban feature.
Yeah, just on accident. Okay, and the issue is that I'm just sending one message here, and it's just going to the same room I'm in or whatever, and so I need to send down here, I need to do this at least twice, right? In other words, right now, u.email is equal to test@example.com or whatever, and that's what I really need is a slice of them. So let's just do this, right?
Would it maybe be better to have, instead of sending out, I guess it works out about the same, but instead of sending out to each person, making a room channel instead of, so a send channel for the room and a receive channel for each one?
We'll see how to do it in a second. But the channel can only be used by one person. They can't be used for family.
Okay. Then that's why.
So now all I've done is I've hard-coded the emails that I know I'm using, and I created a list of them. And so now I will send out two messages. And now I think if I send a message, it'll go to both. So let's see if that actually works. So refresh here, refresh here. Okay, he sends test. He gets test, so that's working. And he got it too. Okay.
Cool.
So let's just double check that because I used that already. Test 2. Test 2. So now it's working. But what's the problem with this code? I mean, it's cool, it works,
We
right?
receive what you send.
Hard-coded. You don't want to.
Yeah, it's hard coded. It only works for those two accounts. If I had a third one.
Well, it's also an echo chamber. You get, oh no.
No, they see each other's, but only
Right,
they
but
can see.
no, I was gonna say,
So we need to
you
make
see what
this.
you type twice, but you don't.
We need to make this more dynamic. We get the user's email right here, right? And so what I need to do is inside when you first join is add this to a list, and then down here I need to get that list, okay? And so we can use the DataStore to do that. It's pretty straightforward. We create a new room.go. So I'm going to make a room struct. We're only going to have one of these, but you could have lots. And maybe instead of just joining it automatically, you ask what room you'd like to join. And we could have more than one this way, but let's just do one. And we'll make a list of emails. And then we'll have a get room that returns the room. Probably a pointer. And we'll probably have a possible error, so let's add that. And then a put room. So I want to get the room and put the room. Okay. I don't want to store this just in memory. I could do that. There's two problems with doing that though. Is one, by doing that, then I have to make sure I lock around it because you have multiple concurrent Go routines happening at the same time, both trying to modify the same memory. That's bad. Okay, so I'd have to put a lock around it, and that's kind of annoying. So that's one issue. What's the second issue?
Second issue is if the instance goes down, it gets replaced by another one.
That's right. So when we run App Engine, often we're running on more than one instance. Sometimes the instance gets restarted. So memory is not, it's volatile, it can go away. And so we could lose the room if we did
And also
that.
if you have multiple instances, one guy's on one instance,
Yeah.
the other guy's on another instance, they will have the same.
Right. So we generally shouldn't be using in-memory stuff. We should try to either use a DataStore or use Memcache. So if we want something that's like memory, we would use Memcache. But since we're going to do something, might as well use the DataStore. So we need a key. So we say datastore.newKey. We give it a context, so that's probably going to take up here. Sorry, it's a context. So I'm just going to pass that into the get room. And then it takes a type, I'm just call room, or a kind, I should say. And then it takes a string key, and so we'll just say global. And then an integer, we'll just ignore that. And then no ancestor, okay? And so we're going to just hard code the key here to global. Like I said, there's just one room. And then we'll do a datastore.get. You give it the context, the key, and the thing to fill, so we do this. So I create a local room. What room? Yeah, I guess it kind of says the room. And then I'm going to tell we get it out of the DataStore and fill this guy. Okay, so
It's actually by room.
So that could be an error.
Don't throw the game off of the game, come on.
So we return nil
Like,
error.
so it's-
If there is an error, we return it. And otherwise we return ampersand room nil. Okay. That seems to look good. So that's how we'll get a room. New key, fill the room, and then return it, okay? They're a very good common pattern with the DataStore. You see that a lot. And we're just hard coding the key. So to put it, we do the same thing. So I have the same kind of key, so I'm just copying that and pasting it. And this time I've passed in the room, so I can just use datastore.put, right? It takes the context, the key, and the thing I want to put. So I need to get this context too. So take that, put it down here. Okay. Okay. So now what I've done is I have a get room and a put room. So I have a room that's going to represent my data, and I can get and put it in the data store. Okay. And then over here in the handlers, I can just use that. So inside of here, I create the channel, and now I'm going to get the room. If that fails, I'll just return the error. Otherwise, I say emails equal append room.emails and the email, which I can get from u.email. and then I put it back, right? Okay, so I'm going to get the room. If that all went great, I'm going to add myself to the room, and then I'm going to put it back. So I'm updating the list in the DataStore. There's still a race condition in here. If two people modify at the same time, one could be lost, but I'm willing to live with that. In other words, I could get the room, and then somebody else could get the room, and then I add myself to it and put it back, and they add themselves to it and put it back, but then I get lost.
If you have the same ancestry, you can do a transaction, right?
Yeah, we could do a transaction, but I'm just not going to worry about it. Okay. But just know that this is two separate steps, right? Getting and putting, and you get weird behavior if people do that at the same time. But it's safer than doing it in memory, because in this case, the worst that'll happen is somebody will overwrite somebody else's changes. If you did it in memory, your program could crash. You could end up with a really weird state. And so this is safer. It's just not transaction, so it's not atomic. But anyway, so we get the room, add ourselves to it, and then put it back. And then down here, instead of hard coding the emails, we're going to get them out of the room. So we say room. And then we just change this to room.emails. Okay. So now, when you first come in, we'll add ourselves to the list of emails, and then when you post a message, we'll get the list of emails and send a message to every single one of them. Okay? So, let's look at that. Uh-oh. No such entry. I think I know what's wrong. Right. The issue is that the room doesn't exist yet. So this error happened saying there was no such entity. So actually, I don't want to do this. So I'm just going to ignore the error, okay? So what's going to happen if I ignore the error?
You still not gonna have a room?
We'll have a room, but the emails will be empty. And that's okay, because it starts out empty. So that's fine. No more error here. If we look in the DataStore, and look at room, we'll see there's one room here with a single person in it. That's the person who just joined, right? They added themselves to the list of emails. If we look at the other one, and I refresh now I've joined it, right? So if I look in the DataStore, there's now two people in the list of emails. So now I think if I send a message here, it should send it to everybody. Test is here, test is here, so everybody's getting it, right? So
What happens when you refresh the page?
we end up with 3 people. So that's a downside of the way I do this.
Still works.
But we could just loop over it and make sure I'm already in there. Also, of course, if there's no way to get rid of people, that's not cool. But there's lots of problems in this. But I'm saying we have the basic chat room working.
If you have that, what's gonna happen? You're gonna get 2 copies of example 2's message?
Yeah.
Yes, that's probably what's going to happen. Yes, got it twice. That is exactly what happened, because I'm in the room twice.
What if you send a message? Do you get your own message?
Yep.
And your own message again?
Yep. And if I refresh again, I'll get it 3 times. And so on. So yeah, I mean, obviously there's problems with this, but I'm just saying. And so the only remaining bit, which I don't think I'm going to do, is to change this to, I guess I can do it. To add it so that it puts it in here. Well, that's not good. But anyway, I was to make it to fill this div up here. But anyway, so yeah, that's how we do that. Any questions about this? Does everyone understand what the thinking here, the process? Okay. Cool. I'm gonna upload that.
One of my learning points right now is like just being able to modularize code and put it into different functions, but then also to sort of like, I don't know, it's like my head doesn't quite think in that way, to wrap my head around from this function to that function to this function. That's like one of the things I'm working on learning, and then also the callback thing is kind of still a new thing for me.
Yeah, JavaScript's all callbacks. That's how you have to do it in
You
JavaScript.
think when you're not writing a server,
Yeah, because Node would be all callbacks as well. Okay, so that's channels, and the next thing we'll talk about is search.